Bom
Hi,
dia. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So I want to thank you so much for being able to meet with me. I'm Ariel Basca with Ride the Omnibus. We're a podcast parked at the intersection of pop culture and social justice. And I absolutely adore this film on so many levels because you're working with so many different kinds of ideas at the same time. In this sort of genre mashup that's talking about purity culture and the role of women and femininity in a specific place in a specific time. And I wondered if you could maybe tell me a little bit where the idea for this film came from.
So the idea was a little bit around 2015. I was releasing my first feature, and I read an article about a group of young women that got together to beat another woman because they consider this other woman to be promiscuous. And not only they beat, but was important for this group to make the girl to look ugly. So they cut their face, they cut their hair short, and uh, and then some weeks after, I found a similar article but set in another city in Brazil, now if girls a little bit older. And then I started to Google it. And I found some different news, not only in Brazil, but in Latin America about this. And for me, that was something that had a lot of to do with the conservative rise in Brazil. Uh, and also made me remind of the Medusa myth, because in the origin of the myth, Medusa was punished by Athena, the virgin goddess, because of the loss of her purity. In one version of the myth, she was raped. In the other, she fell into temptation. But because of that, Athena transformed her into the horrible creature you all know about. So that was a starting point. And then I started doing a big research in the ultra right communities in Brazil about the evangelical community, about ultra right YouTubers, and then everything started to to get some form.
Wow, but I mean, because it's really powerful the way that the narrative is shaped. But I think one of the most fascinating images that you have is, this white mask that is supposed to sort of conceal identity. But it's interesting how they're trying to erase the identity of these other women as well, in the process of, this sort of vigilante girl gang that is established to chase these women who they regard as impure. And I wondered, like, have you had any specific interactions with either of other women or people in the religious community that influenced this film?
Yeah, I did. More like I have some friends and people that I know that grow up in the church, but now they are not more part of the church. Most because they they are gays or from the LGBTQ community and they are not accepted in this church. So, but I talk to a lot of people that grow up in evangelical communities, and for me it's not only about our writing the film. I was inspired by the one specific church that's very big in Brazil, but was not my intention to talk about all the evangelical communities because they are very different sides and very, but about more about one specific group that here in Brazil is very big, a group that is occupying a lot of seats in Congress, that that is getting a lot of money. So that's this group also has have an army of God, but from with male young guys. And uh, and yes, by starting in my research, I really, for me, it was very important to talk more about one specific church. I didn't want to go, and everything that the minister says is inspired by real speeches by real ministers from this church. And but the girls, of course, I'm stretching up a bit. And for me, what I observe a lot is that since they have to control themselves so much, the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they behave, they start to control the others. They start to control their own group, their friends, and they start to control the other girls outside the groups. Like, if I can't do that, why is she doing? And then that's the way to control themselves, controlling the others.
Yeah.
But in another hand, would the church approve for them to go out at night doing that? So that's why one of the reasons for the masks, because they have to control, but they can't have any attitude like that because they are supposed to be at home.
Yeah, and the other thing that the entire hypocrisy of the sort of patriarchal system that they exist within, where their behavior is controlled so much, whereas domestic abuse, for example, is completely tolerated. And there are even YouTube explanations for how to apply makeup so no one has to look at your bruised face. you know um I, exploring that angle of domestic violence as well, is something that I wonder, is that a I mean, you see that a lot in a lot of Christian households, pretty much throughout history. But watching it here, it feels so fresh and so different the way that it's portrayed in this sort of new context. And I wondered, is this something that is on the rise with the younger generations?
Yeah, I think in Brazil, we could feel a conservative rise in 2013. And then now things are a little bit are changing a bit with the elections that are coming but I think things now are starting to change a little bit for the best. But from at least 10 years, we felt a big conservative rise. And the people from this ultra right, they have money. So they had much more money to do videos and they're much more invested, I think, in creating materials. And so, for example, during Dilma impeachments and Bolsonaro election in Brazil, the ultra-right videos, they were very well made. You could see there are a lot of production value on them. And then I found out a lot of ultra-right YouTubers that they also are doing videos with a lot of money, with great quality, and that's very attractive for our young generation. And some of the videos that I found out was not people that are openly talking about politics, but for example, I found one girl that she was talking about makeup and beauty, but she would say a lot of very conservative things also, like how she should be submissive to her husband, how she should do this makeup to attract men, how she should behave on church and things like that. But it was supposed to be a makeup channel, but she was also, while teaching makeup, saying a lot of things about women being submissive to men. And I even found other YouTubers that are more political, like a young woman that would talk about the feminism being the end of the world, that we should stop the feminist movement, and how she was proud to be submissive to her boyfriend and her husband and things like that. So yeah, I'm pretty much afraid about what we can find online, especially think about a new generation that sometimes the parents have no idea what they are watching because one video can take to the other, and then you never know what's to be the next video.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, also, how has this film been received in Brazil and compared to the rest of the world?
No, so far the film has only played in film festivals in Brazil. It was not commercially released yet. And yeah, I think in Brazil, people can identify more what's the church I'm talking about, the ministers that inspire the character of the minister and things like that. People can, but I don't think that makes any difference in comprehend and understand the story. Yeah, but so far the audience that watch is pretty much a festival audience. And since the name of the film is Medusa, I think it's pretty much out of the radar of the ultra right. They didn't even realize this is. So, and they're not going to go to the movie theaters much. But yeah, so far I think the big difference that people in Brazil can identify some things more. They can see what I was inspired in real life by some of the elements in the film, but nothing that can change the way you understand the movie.
Yeah. Well, and that's so fascinating too, that like Medusa would almost provide a mask for the film in some sense as well. But I love that the sort of central mystery and the central character in the film is someone who experiences disfigurement, and so much of her life just changes from the second that she, is given this scar, and that she has to completely change her circumstances of how she's living. And I love the central mystery in these, like, rundown hospital wards, and the creepy staff. The way that you portray them is fascinating. And I wondered, when you were casting these parts, how difficult was it to find people who fit what you were thinking?
No, it was not very difficult. No, it was pretty much easy. I was more conflicted about who to choose than to for all the young characters. Not for the main character. She did my Mari. She did my first feature, so I always have her in mind. But for all the other young characters, I made open calls. With the girls was very difficult because I have more girls that I test that I really love, and I have to pick only 8. That for me was very difficult. And for the hospital, the actress that plays the head nurse, I saw her in another film, and I directly invite her. And the actor that plays the minister, he's a big soap opera star in Brazil, and he's a friend of a friend. So I also invited him directed, but most of the others was through open calls.
Oh wow. Because I love all of the scenes you know in the hospital are really quite creepy, and looking for the character who you know we never know, was she really there or not. But I love the way that you create the atmosphere in those sequences. What were some of the things that you did from a camera perspective to really heighten that anxiety in those sequences?
For me, the hospital is the most fantastic part of the film. It's the most crazy one. I was pretty much inspired about this numb feeling that I had in Brazil during the past years. That we saw like a lot of things happening that we didn't imagine that was happening, but no one knows how to react. So I start to think about these people that are sleeping and they don't know the reason. And camera, there we use much more the camera in the hands. We have also some scenes with zoom lenses that do this more tense feeling. And we use the green a lot in the hospital. It was all painted. It was not like that. It was a big production design work there. And yeah, but a lot of we how to say that, use some dollies, use some camera in hands, and some zoom lenses as well in some moments.
Mm. And then, like, seeing the juxtaposition of the hospital and then the forest outside was really fascinating to me. That's not something that you would typically see in like an American film. Like, obviously, we don't have rainforests everywhere, but
Yeah.
um, but I was wondering, like, were there specific things that you were trying to show in that counterpoint?
Yeah, for me, this the hospital. I don't see so much as a counterpoint, but it's a hospital that's not so close to reality. It's what you said. You don't know if you see Melissa's or not in there, or you don't know what she's imagining or not. And I want to be this place that's more ludic, more. And so they're having this rainforest next to it, and this place that is more close to her body, to the nature. It was something that I had since the script, to be this hospital, but surrounded by forests, and a place that she can be more in touch with her body and with other feelings and with and and with herself, but not rationalizing so much, a more intuitive self. So for me, it was important to have all this nature surrounding her.
Yeah. And it's also fascinating because, like, when you consider the Medusa myth and how Medusa is sort of considered a creature of nature and sort of in this fantastical space, and, all of the greens, like, always, feel um, so vibrant in this film. And, again, recall to mind the snakes and the so on and so forth. But, like, I absolutely love that about this film. And then when you think about kind of the Greek myth and the whole idea of, um, sorry, the whole idea of how a woman's purity is perceived and how you are punished, whether or not it is your fault or not, whether violence has been committed against you, it's still your fault. It's a fascinating myth, but I wondered if you had other feelings about interpreting mythology into your works. Like, is this a theme that you're likely to continue to pick up on?
I don't, I mean, yeah, a bit, I think. I'm very fascinated about Greek myths since a young age. And in the films, there are other myths that I use, not only Medusa, like hero myths and other ones that are there. And as you talk, the green is very important. Since the beginning, I saw the green as a color of Medusa, the serpents and everything, the green, the nature. And yeah, for my next film, I'm thinking a little bit about the Arachne myth, another one that was punished by Athena.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it's a good starting point, the Greek myths, especially when we are looking for some inspiration.
Yeah, no, I was very curious about that because it is, one of those myths that not everybody remembers exactly why she became the monster and why, the monstrous feminine becomes what it is today. I also wondered about your next project. Are you looking ahead to another project now, or are you still just very focused on publicity?
No, no, I'm starting to develop, but I'm still in a treatment phase, like 10 pages. And but yeah, there's a bit of the Arachne myth, but it's a project about people that work in the film and TV show business. Um, so yeah, and this one will be a little bit more musical than the others.
Ooh, a musical. I like it. And and have you figured out yet exactly what you're going to do about like the tapestry that shows the misdeeds of the gods, like how you're gonna, you know
No, no, I really don't know.
no, I'm just very curious because I used to be a Latin teacher, so I absolutely adore mythology. And so I think it's wonderful how you're reinterpreting these things in a horror genre satire kind of way. I really appreciate that. And
But I think this one was the one of the most myths. The next will be more one or two elements, but this was
okay, gotcha.
more about this in the name. It's about Medusa. What's
Gotcha.
good that people go and Google the myth after watching the film. If people that don't know the only know a part of the myth, they go out of the screening and start to Google to understand why the name. So that's a good way for people to get to know more about the Greek myths.
Yeah. And I actually have a quick question for you. Did you happen to see the Tunisian film Black Medusa?
No, I
No?
didn't.
Okay. All right. I was just curious because that's another film that comments on the myth in very interesting sort of modern ways with disability, instead of, disfigurement, deformity, and masks and so forth. But
Oh, nice.
yeah. But anyway, I want to thank you so much for this interview and for your work. This
Thank
is an
you.
absolutely phenomenal film and it's rightfully gotten a lot of praise. And I can't wait to see it grow further. So
Thank you so much.